Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maury, and I'm here with my husband Jim. And it is Sunday evening, and we are about to talk about artificial intelligence. Surprise, surprise. So,
Mhm.
every Sunday we talk about this. Tonight, we are actually going to be talking about some new regulations and some new legislative stuff that is happening, not necessarily in Texas, because as I always say, Texas isn't quite there yet. But we're going to talk about some stuff that's going on in California.
They've
Um,
been busy out there, actually.
they really have, right now it looks like they're leading quite a few things when it comes to artificial intelligence and like the laws and the regulations that they're putting in out there. So,
I think the word lead would depend on who you ask. I suspect some of the tech companies would say they're not leading, but they're putting us behind. So I think that it's kind of a perspective because some of the stuff they're doing I agree with and some I don't. But, I guess to your point, they're at least making an effort
well,
to get their
yeah,
arms wrapped around it.
one of the things that I have been saying quite a bit is that artificial intelligence, whether you love it or whether you hate it, the thing that artificial intelligence has done, not just in the computer industry, the technology industry, is it's making us actually think about and talk about some of the things we should have been talking about all along. The big one in education is cheating. Kids have cheated since the beginning of school. And now, all of a sudden, because of AI, we're actually talking about it. So, and then here we are, we're talking about safety and we're talking about privacy and we're talking about bias. And so, artificial intelligence is really kind of shining a light on some of these things that we should have been talking about all along. So,
I
in
agree with that
California,
statement.
yeah, so in California, we were actually in Northern California not too long ago doing some professional
Twice.
development twice, doing some professional development for a really great little school district out there. And it was brought up. The legislation was brought up when we were out there. We were kind of talking about it. Basically, California is trying to regulate artificial intelligence, and they're trying to address, certain issues. The main one would be like deep fakes, which is a huge concern of mine and of a lot of people, and also discrimination.
All right, well, we might as well do them in order because there's a whole bunch of them. So let's start with Senate Bill 1407.
All right. Senate Bill 1407, it's known as the Safe and Secure Innovation for Frontier Artificial Intelligence Models Act. Say
Is that
that
an
fast.
acronym? Is that an acronym? Because that's SSIF. I don't think that's an acronym. I don't know what
No,
that
I
is.
don't either. But that's a mouthful. But basically, what it's doing is aiming to regulate the development and use of advanced AI models in California. Now, it's going to require developers to implement like safety protocols and have annual audits and report safety incidents to the actual attorney general there in California. They're also talking about establishing a board, like a members that belong to a board of frontier models that are like going to oversee regulations. So it proposes to create a Cal Compute, I think is what they're calling it, which is like a public cloud computing cluster that's promoting safe and ethical AI development. Now, there's a lot of things about this that might be good, but I'm also seeing a lot of things about this that aren't so good. So, what are you thinking?
I'm just not. I'm not getting the good vibes on this one. I'm kind of have to agree with the tech companies on this one. I think that you're going to find the big tech companies are like, sure, yeah, go ahead, we don't mind because you know you and I owned a small business before. We know what it's like to have to deal with and the cost of dealing with state inspections.
Hmm.
And it was very difficult to deal with. Well, the same problem applies here. When you get the big guys like Google and Microsoft and OpenAI, they don't care because
Right,
they
they
can
have the money.
afford, they have the money to put the people in place to abide by all this. But the little ones, the ones that are doing all the real, what I consider some of the most innovative work, are in the open source community, and they're not. These people, most of them are doing this stuff for free. I mean, you don't get paid to develop open source most of the time. So, what are the odds that they're going to deal with this at the risk of getting fined and all that other stuff? they're either just not going to do it or they're just not going to make it available in California. Remember recently one of the tools that we were using, the Meta
Mm-hmm.
tool that got
Mm-hmm.
blocked in 2 states,
Texas,
which was Texas
Illinois.
and Illinois, because Meta was irritated about a lawsuit, and so they basically lopped off the access to it. You could download it and use it, but you couldn't use it through their free thing. Well, that's, I think, what you're going to see, like Hugging Face, which is a huge repository of open source models and stuff. They'll just cut it off in California. I don't see how this can possibly work. It sounds good in theory, but I think these people that are doing this have a very fundamental lack of understanding of what this technology is and is not. So
And I mean, I think they have a limited view also. They're not
yeah, they're
seeing
getting their
the
view from
whole scope,
lobbyists.
right?
They're getting
And
their
the
view from lobbyists.
lobbyists are working for the big guys. And
That's
let's
correct.
face it, a lot of times the big guys want to keep the little guys out because there's a lot more, bigger pieces of the pie if it's not divided into littler sections.
I can't
So,
remember that term. I can't remember that term again. It's basically using government regulations to put a barrier to entry. There's a
right,
specific term for that. We used it in our last training, and I can't think of what it is.
like
Anyway,
regulatory recapture,
regulatory capture,
capture,
not
regulatory
recapture.
capture.
It's
Right,
regulatory capture.
right.
That's what we're talking about.
Right.
Anyway,
Well, I want to bring up something else though, because, we only have a couple to talk about, so we do have enough time tonight.
we have a
The
lot
other
more to
thing,
talk about than a couple.
well, I understand, but one of the things that also concerned me whenever they talked about the board, whether they're going to establish a board and they were going to
Hmm.
have inspectors. I know in the food industry, which I was in for 7 years having a restaurant, this never happened locally, but I do know a lot of restaurant owners in some of the larger cities that, kickbacks and bribes and
Well,
I
that's
mean
probably
there's
why our inspectors did this, what they did to us, because remember we had the one that, on our back steps wanted to measure the distance between the pickets and decided the pickets were, not far enough or too close together or not close enough together or something. I swear he was expecting us to give him some kind of kickbacks just to
like
get him, because the stuff he found was ridiculous.
right.
And that's what happens when you have, who inspects the inspectors and who makes
Mhm.
sure that they're doing that. Isn't that what just happened to some degree in some of they found the inspectors were a little bit too cozy in several industries. They've had that in the oil and gas industry. They've had that problem in the aerospace industry. They get too cozy with these big companies and they put the hammer down on the little guys because they can. And anyway, I agree with you on that. I think it's ripe for corruption. I think it's ripe for incompetence, and it's just going to add cost that adds very little value. So, not that I have a
Okay.
strong opinion about it or anything.
You never have a strong opinion about anything,
That
so.
one, I do not agree with that one. But the next one I'm better with. Assembly Bill 1777, and they're called Assembly Bills. Here in Texas, they're called House Bills and Senate Bills. So
Mhm.
apparently, this is an AB 1777,
Okay.
and
It's a
this one I agree with.
Yeah, well, it's addressing autonomous vehicles. So when we were in California, we actually saw several autonomous
Waymo,
vehicles.
Waymo.
Yeah, and it was kind of, people bully those things.
That was actually
They
kind of funny.
really do. And I
They
mean,
don't let it in.
well, I had never thought about it, but we were sitting there, we're driving down the interstate, and it puts its blinker on, and nobody slows down, and nobody lets it over, and so it would take its blinker off, and it would go a little bit further down the road, and it put its blinker back on, and
You
nobody
know,
let it
they're
in. And I didn't think anything of it until I made a comment to somebody in our training that we had seen it, and it was trying to get over in traffic, and he was like, "Oh no, people bully those things all the time," and I'm like, "How
and
sad is that?"
technically it's not bullying because it's a machine, but you know what? The machine doesn't care. And
Yeah,
the only one it's really impacting is the poor person in the back seat
yeah, I
who's
was trying to
trying to get to their
travel.
destination and they can't. The thing I like about this one, though, that I had not thought about, but I've heard about it. I've heard about it a lot in San Francisco, which is where we flew into. The manufacturers are being held responsible for traffic violations committed by the autonomous vehicles without drivers. I actually thought that was interesting because there was a cop that pulled one over. I'm not sure how he got it to pull over, but a cop pulled one over and he there was nobody in it. So, and I think it had
Who do
run
you
a
cite? Yeah, who
yeah.
do
Who
you
do you
write the
cite?
ticket to?
If it runs a stop sign or something, what do you do with that? And the other part of this, and I don't fully understand because their wording's a little odd. They talk about emergency communication systems, two-way. I think that has to do with that poor person in the back seat. The second safety requirement, fully autonomous vehicles must have emergency communication systems and a two-way voice device by July
Now,
2026. I think
yeah,
that's
I
that.
could see
I think
how
it's
if
like the
I
emergency button on the elevator when you get stuck between floors.
right, right.
So the
I mean,
car breaks down. You have a cell phone, but let's assume for the moment you have who do you call when the car decides to stop working and you're in the back of this car? What do you do, right?
or you can also be in a zone that you have no cell
Mhm.
service. So,
Exactly.
you would think
So
that they would need to have satellite coverage or something like that.
well, I
The
mean,
other thing
just
was
yeah,
the emergency geofencing, which to me that would be like if there's a wreck ahead and there's ambulances and things trying to get through, then maybe they have to be able to,
get it out of the
be
way.
able to get them out of the
Yeah, what is I mean, how does it know when it's coming to an intersection that there's a siren? I mean, we hear the sirens.
right.
So, I mean, I guess it's the same problem a person that's hearing impaired would have. I assume there's
Mhm.
some mechanism to notify a hearing impaired person that there's an ambulance coming
Mhm.
because they can't hear the siren whenever they're driving.
Right.
So, I don't know how they notify people that are hearing impaired that
Well,
there's so
lights.
maybe
I
that
mean, they look for lights.
yeah, but
That's why the lights are
we
so
can hear the
distinctive.
siren a long time before
Really.
the lights. So you start looking for it because you
Mhm.
hear the siren. Anyway, I think that's what this emergency geofencing is about, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
But anyway,
The next
moving
one
on.
is Senate Bill 942 as the California AI Transparency Act. Now, this is something that requires covered providers to offer free AI detection tools and include manifest and latent disclosures and AI generated
And what was that term you used a second ago to
deepfakes,
describe the what happens when you put rules in place that the big guys don't care about?
regulatory capture.
Here's another example of potential regulatory capture.
So it mandates providers to revoke licenses from third party licensees who modify systems to bypass disclosure requirements.
But the point is, you have to put these AI detection tools, again, these open source, they're going to have to put exemptions in there for these open source guys with these small models. You're talking about 7 billion, 30, 30 billion, 70 billion. These smaller models that are trained and made by people, I understand people are doing bad things with those because they can, but they're really the ones everybody's paranoid about are these multi-trillion dollar ones, multi-trillion token systems or parameter systems that are being made by the big guys because they're the only ones that can afford the $100 million it takes to train them. If you're a little
Hmm.
guy doing a free tool that you think is fun, what is it that you're going to go ahead and make yourself a AI detection tool at the same time? And I guess they could put if they standardized on a watermarking tool that was required on AI generated images, that the little guys could do because then it's just a library that they
Right.
put in there. Of course, you can remove watermarks, but assuming they come up with a way not to. But that I could understand. But this other, penalties, $5,000 civil penalties per incident, that kind of stuff is going to hurt people doing what I think is incredibly creative work.
Yeah. The other one that they're talking about is AB or Assembly Bill 2655. It's
Yes.
called Defending Democracy from Deep Fakes Act. And basically, it's saying,
That's a.
like, all your big social media platforms have to
Mm-hmm.
block political deepfakes that are meant to mislead voters for a certain time period leading up to elections. For me, it's kind of like we basically go through elections minimum of every 2 years. I mean, I know we have presidential elections, every four
Every
years, but
4 years,
then,
yes. We
you
do go
have
every we do
every
every two
two
years
years.
because
Right,
you have alternating years where you do Senate elections every.
right.
Yeah, I think their senators can run for 6 years and congressmen can run for 2 or 4 years. My
I
civics
don't
class
know. And
apparently
then you
didn't work.
you have your government, your local government
States.
elections, state government elections. So my question is, why? Why say it has to be for a certain period of time leading up to elections? Just block political deepfakes. If you get
I
caught doing a deepfake that is for political reasons, then stop.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope though, because I think you should go back to the idea that you have to designate it as generated by AI.
Well,
I
no.
think blocking it is going to be difficult because who defines a harmful deepfake for that has political motivations? The one that I saw recently, which was Kamala Harris, and they showed her in this really black outfit and a big devil looking thing behind her, and she had four fingers on each hand, which was interesting because that means somebody's using a really bad one.
Hmm.
But my point
It's like,
was
come
is
on,
that
guys, get a
a
better
lot,
image
a lot of the
generator.
comments around it were, "Hey, she looks like she's about to drop a heavy metal album, and it's a cool picture." Do they do harm? I mean, it's really difficult. There's so many other problems that these media companies are creating, not the media companies, but these media platforms are creating with deep fakes around kids and all that other stuff. They haven't got that problem solved. The
It's
political
true.
elections, you've got, I think there's 2,000 influencers now they're accusing of being paid for by a company that's getting all of its funding from a Russian
Yes.
government. I mean,
Yes.
that's a bigger problem to me, all these influencers getting paid, than
Then a
whether
very
or not
poor.
somebody generates a really poor image. I understand that it's bad, but if you solve the problem of how you can force people to watermark these things or designate them as AI generated, even the little guys can put something in there if you create the libraries that say, you know, this was generated by AI. I really think they need to focus on the core problem and get away from the political problem. But anyway,
I agree with you, but I also agree or think, and this happened just recently, it wasn't necessarily an image, it was literally a post that was getting propagated throughout Facebook and all these other
mhm,
social media platforms that the post literally, if you clicked on the link and you went to the actual post, it said that the whole website, it's like, getting something off the Onion or whatever it used to, I don't even know if the Onion's
yes,
still around,
well, it's definitely still around.
but it was 100% satire. And the actual website said at the very top of the website, everything on this website is satirical. But
Okay,
somebody
so
had taken something off of it and had posted that onto social media without saying it was satire, and it was being spread like it was the truth. And
welcome
so,
to what was that called? QAnon or whatever it's called. I mean, the fact is that that's been happening since the internet, since the World Wide Web was created. They didn't designate it as satire because they didn't want to. They remember there are governments in the world, Russia, China, other governments around the world that are trying to destabilize our elections because while we're focused on the things that we probably should or should not be focused on. We're not focused on whether or not some country is invading another one or whether or not somebody is doing something in some country. We're staying out of other things because we're focused on that. So if you can keep us churning, as a
yeah,
country, if we can get rid of the churn, then maybe we could focus on the real problems in the world. And I think these large media platforms are part of the churn. I mean, they're getting their money from somewhere, and I think they could do a better job of what they're doing. Which, by the way, that it's kind of a corollary to that. The Assembly Bill 2355, which is basically what you said, it would
hmm,
require political advertisements to disclose they're generated by AI. That's fair. I mean,
yeah,
again, just like your satire thing, they should have been required to say this is satire. People would have ignored it anyway,
hmm,
but they still should have been required to say it. Same thing. If you use AI for anything that any political advertisement, and that's like you said, that has nothing to do with whether or not it's some particular election. All political advertising should
right,
have to be, there's one of the principals at the school when she writes something with AI, she tells people I generated this with AI.
right,
She probably goes further than she has to, but it's not
probably.
difficult. And if you don't, then your intentions were, what did I used to say when we started all this stuff you and I did 2, 3 years ago with AI? We said that the hot topic is going to be certified human.
Yes,
Well, that's one of these things where if it doesn't say that it's AI, then you're going to get in trouble. Or we need to say you can't do anything unless it's certified by a human when it comes to political advertisements. Some human has to certify this is human generated.
hmm,
Anyway, I agree with you on that one. I do think the next one's interesting, though.
it
Assembly
is.
Bill 1836. This one's an interesting one.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a guy that just got arrested, but I don't think he was using AI. He got
No, he
arrested.
wasn't using
He
AI.
had made $10 million by taking and basically faking music and putting it out there for people to stream. But it come to find out, what he was doing is he was basically having a bunch of bots that were signing up to the music platforms, downloading his own music by the bots,
Or
and then
listening to it, or listening
and
to
then
it a lot. I mean,
listening to it, and then
because you
he
get
was
paid
getting
by the
like
listen.
more followers, and he was getting paid by the listens, and yeah, so he was making a lot of money. But of course,
You and I,
immediately they were like, hey, it was AI generated, but it wasn't, because it was 7 years ago. But for this instance, what they're talking about here is how it's going to be illegal to profit off of the likeness of somebody who is dead. So,
well, the
like,
likeness, it's the likeness, but it's also, think about it. I can take an Elvis song with AI and I can create a song that sounds Elvish like, Elvis like, but isn't Elvis, and then
hmm
sell it like it's Elvis. So
hmm
that part of what I think is interesting about this is you can generate images of people that are things that are still copyrighted. I mean, some things have gone out of copyright. Like there was a big deal with Disney because who knows what's going to
Mickey.
happen to Mickey Mouse now that Mickey Mouse, the 99-year copyright finally went away. Same kind of thing. There's the the people that are still profiting and the corporations that are still profiting off of these people that are long since gone. I
hmm
mean, there are people that argue that you the copyright is too long, that
Right,
Elvis made his money and he lived his life and he made a bunch of money and his wife and his kids should benefit, but should his grandkids and great grandkids and I mean, should they benefit forever? Or at some
right.
point should it become, kind of like you can't, nobody owns Mozart anymore or Bach or any of that stuff. Nobody's making money off that because they can make money off of who's playing it, but they can't make money off the actual song itself. Anybody can copy it. Maybe at some point it should. But anyway, that's the point of this, is that you can't fake a song. You can't. I kind of agree with this one. I know it's a little weird. I think they should make the time shorter, but I kind of
hmm
agree with the concept. I think it's what you said at the very beginning. I think all of these conversations should have been had a long time ago,
hmm
and this is forcing us to have conversations that are painful, but we got to
hmm
deal with them one way or the other, or
I
this
agree.
dumpster fire we call the World Wide Web is only going to get worse.
Absolutely. Now, finally, here's one more, then we're going to talk about what we've been doing
Yes, because
personally.
we're going to run out of time. Yes.
So, there's a bill that's going to make it illegal to make robotic weapons unless you work for a defense company.
I don't
Wow.
think they should make robotic weapons that are AI controlled at all.
What
No
a
one should.
what a
But
great
yes,
concept is that. If you don't work for a defense company that's actually in the business of selling weapons to the Defense Department, you can't make a robotic weapon.
well, it's funny you mentioned that. That's not funny in a humorous sort of way, but there was a company that got out of Houston that got in trouble a few years ago because they were setting up guns on in places. Basically, the deer feeders that people make. Well,
hmm
imagine somebody sets a gun up that can be controlled through the web, so you can sit in your apartment in some other town and you get to control the rifle that kills a deer. Can you imagine how bad of an idea that is? I mean,
I'm sorry, but
the
that
fact
is
that
the lazy hunter approach right there.
you're not a hunter when you do that. That
No.
that is that is not a hunter. But
If you're not
yeah,
willing to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go sit in a deer stand and freeze your bahunkus off,
exactly,
then
then you don't
you're
deserve it.
not a
I
hunter.
I don't even like the automated deer feeder thing. So I
Yeah,
certainly
I
think
don't
the
either.
idea of the robotic weapons, oh, that's such a bad idea. It's a bad idea for the DoD to do it too. It is
So,
every bad sci-fi movie. Anyway, I'm sorry. There's a few more bills, but
well, no,
that's
actually, I
that's pretty
mean,
much it.
basically, California they're coming out with all these AI bills, and it's showing how, the state politicians are really trying to become, like, as you said, the nation's de facto AI regulator. Congress is continuing to discuss the technology, but they're not passing anything specific.
Yep.
California isn't the only state that's moving ahead with these AI policies. In New York, the Attorney General
Th-
said that they were going
There's
to
a
release a guide,
yeah, that's
but
kind
a
of lame.
guide is
That's
not a
lame.
law, a guide is not a bill. So
That's lame.
anyway, California is like, hey guys, we've got to, address these issues. So kudos for California. Yes, I
At
am in
least giving it an
Texas.
effort.
Yes, I did say kudos for California. Hopefully my Texas listeners don't get upset with me, but
Well, somebody needs to have the conversation about all this AI stuff.
I
So
keep waiting for Texas. Texas still has not released any official guidelines for like AI in education. And I'm sitting here going, come on, guys,
I know the
do
federal
something.
government put out some guidelines, but I thought their guidelines were honestly
Uh,
kind of lightweight too. But
well, again,
anyway,
they're not willing
anyway,
to take a stand, not willing to take a stand.
w- we
So
need to
let's
do
talk about what
our
we're doing.
update.
Okay, so we have, I don't know if you're a new listener,
Hold on, what's it called? I told you, we got to tell people what this is called because it's a cool name.
as I was saying. For any new listeners, we have a thing called AI Trailblazers.
Okay.
So we have a group of teachers. It's a pilot program that we've adopted 3 classrooms at our school district that we work at full time. And we're also going to be adding another class at another district. We're going to be adopting some classrooms at some other districts that are willing to pilot this. And what we're doing is we're testing out AI techniques and technologies in an actual classroom. So our delivery mechanism for collecting all of the AI tools is called an AI toolbox, otherwise known as Agnes. So Agnes is our AI toolbox. And at the moment, we are very focused on our chat AI tool, which is teacher focused. 100% teacher focused at this time. We're not student focused. We've created this and we've been using it at our school district. So Chat AI or Agnes Chat lets us have more locally controlled rollout of AI to our staff. And it also allows us to better manage how it's used because what it's doing is it's letting us save money and we're ensuring safety through the features like token tracking or chat archiving and content filtering. So not only is it great for our teachers, but it's also great for our technology department because the technology department has the control and the teachers get to have the fun, right?
Well, and the technology department, it comes out of their budget, has to
Right.
deal with that. Now, not we haven't got all these features in yet. What we have is the framework in place to allow us to put in. We do have the chat archiving. We do have some of the token tracking we're already putting in place. The content filtering, we're not quite there yet. That's one of the reasons why we keep things teacher facing, is because they're
Mm-hmm.
adults and they can, how to ask the right questions. But we can archive the chats anyway. So, but
Right.
yeah, money was a big one for us when we started
Money
this.
is a big
How do
one.
we make this work?
So when I look at the money situation, basically what I look at is, okay, I've got this, I can go out and I can buy a canned tool and I can pay a certain amount of money every single month for every single teacher, even though I might have a handful or more than a handful of teachers that never use it, but I'm still having to pay for them. But this way, I have like a fuel gauge almost where I can see and I can watch and I can go, hey, you've used it a little bit too much. Maybe go to the free version, which is something that I am doing whenever I go into the classrooms. We've got all of these different tools that, like, one might cost a little more, one doesn't cost as much, one's the free version. And then whenever I go in and I'm showing the teachers how to use this, I'm like, since you're not doing image generation and stuff like that, maybe go to the freer version, or maybe go to the free
Are you talking about
version,
the
or maybe,
models that were? You talking about the fact that
yeah,
they can select the model? That's one
yeah.
of the cool features about it. It literally has a drop down in it in the user interface
Hmm.
that you can select the model. Like, the top model is GPT or GPT 4.0, and
Hmm.
then there's GPT Mini, and then we also
Hmm.
have a fully local model that we've put in there now. So we have 3 models right now,
And we're
but
going to add some more.
we're going to add we actually can add quite a few more. I've got some really interesting ideas about some of the models that I want to add and the way I want to add them into it. But I think that the fact that you're training the teachers to select the model based on, is it good enough for what you need, and in this one, I think that's really cool. I
Yes.
do.
So we're almost out of time, but what I wanted to say is the reason that I and the Trailblazers, the AI Trailblazer project is really exciting for me personally is because not only do I get to go in and I get to interact with the kids during the day, I'm going at least 1, possibly 2 days a week. I'm going over to our other campuses and I'm helping these teachers, but it's also going to allow me to, like, look at the data. Like, we're not putting the data in the AI, but it's allowing me to see the growth in the classroom. Like, we're doing some really fun activities. We're starting to use, the teachers are really starting to warm up to using it for like additional things for students to do, or project feedback whenever a kid's giving them a project, or helping with rubrics or poems, or just thinking outside the box,
Yeah, and
because
that's I think that's where you've been doing a good job of starting there, because I think that's your starting point. The great thing about this tool is we add more stuff into the toolbox.
Mhm.
It's going to go well beyond this whole idea of the rubrics and all that other stuff. You've said it in almost every one that we've training or professional development we've done lately. You've said, how can you expect to educate the students on this, on all the aspects of AI, if you don't know how to use it yourself? So you're
Right,
giving them beginning piece. I'm
right.
excited about this. You forgot to mention the most important part. What did you make for the teacher? It's almost here too. You ordered it.
Oh, t-shirts.
T-shirts.
And it was funny because when I told them, I said,
I
"Hey
didn't get
guys,
to
I'm
see
get
the design.
I
I didn't
well,
even
I
see
told
the
them, I was like,
design.
"Hey guys, I made us t-shirts or I'm making us t-shirts. They're on the way." And one of the teachers immediately was like, "Did you use an AI to design the t-shirt?" And I was like, "Well, of course I did. You know,
I
I
didn't get to
used an
see that.
AI
I
to
didn't
help
see it.
design the t-shirt." No, it's really, really cool. I like it a lot. So I will I'll let you see it when it comes in. It's supposed to be in by
So
the 13th.
if you see someone walking around at a show like the TCA conference or something, and they've got an AI Trailblazer T-shirt on, then you know it was designed by Maury AI-ish.
Well, what I did is I designed it in AI and I took the design and I put it in, I pulled it up on one screen and then I designed it in Canva on the other.
Of
And,
course you did.
so I love it. Canva is a great tool.
You
I
could
do
you
like
could be a
Canva.
salesperson for Canva. You
Yes,
love that tool.
maybe I'll do that in my second, third, or fourth job. Okay, so real
Maybe.
quick, I am now a co-chair for education and training for the Austin AI Alliance, which is
Cool.
very exciting. I get to be, I'm a co-chair for that. I am also on the human intelligence group. I have joined and been accepted as a member of a group called the Human Intelligence Movement. So anyway, it's kind of cool. It's about basically what they are about is keeping the human in the loop and making sure that we are getting our lessons and things in education to assess our knowledge and not necessarily assess what an AI can do. Basically,
I
it's
think we
up
talked
in the
about that one,
ante.
and I think we talked about that a couple of podcasts ago
Yeah.
because you were talking to them originally. It's the
Yes.
human, and I told you that name sounds like something you'd hear in an apocalyptic movie about AI taking over the world.
But it's
I
really
remember that
not.
one.
It's
I know
really
it's
not,
not.
though.
It's
It's
a funny,
more,
it's a fun name though. It's a fun name.
yeah, yeah, it is. So, anyway, we are out of time. So, we are going to let you guys go. Once again, my name is Mari, and I'm here with my husband and Jim, and we talk about artificial intelligence every single Sunday evening to drop our podcast on Monday mornings. And we hope you guys have a marvelous rest of the week.